breeds.
Breeds.
I learned something the other day
Yep.
that I probably should have known, that flabbergasted me, that border collies are not a official breed with CKC. They are with AKC.
Yep.
And they are with the Canadian Border Collie Association.
Yes,
That's
they're
probably the wrong name.
miscellaneous.
Yeah, they're a miscellaneous
Yep.
breed. So I fell off my chair. Can you, I mean, to me, a Border Collie is a purebred dog.
It is.
So, can you explain that? I'm really confused.
I will try. Because they want to keep the authenticity of the breed. Because if you watch breeds now, you look at my Shelties, for instance. When they started, they were smaller. They didn't carry as much coat. Their heads were different. They were a little bit smaller. And in a breeding program and what we've done to the breed, we changed the look of them. So they want to keep that working line, and some Border Collie person might correct me, but it's the fact of they want to keep their working and the purpose of a Border Collie. They don't want to cosmetically change it.
So the CKC listed ones are about rules around what a dog looks like?
We do have a standard that they fall into, the faults of a dog, the accepted colors of a dog, how they should move, how they should be structured, how their ears are set, how their eyes should look. So that's our official standard.
Okay, let me explain in a little more detail. Grab a cup of tea. This is going to take a few moments. Dog breeds in Canada are governed under the Federal Animal Pedigree Act. It provides governing authority for associations of a number of different animals, and those include bison, alpacas, llamas, cattle, donkeys, fox, goat, horses, sheep, swine, and dogs. Sorry, cat owners, you are totally out of luck here. Dogs are divided into 3 groups. The majority of dog breeds are governed by the Canadian Kennel Club. You might expect that. However, there are 2 other associations. The Canadian Canine Federation is responsible for a number of breeds, mostly of European origin. And then there is the Canadian Border Collie Association. They are responsible for, well, border collies. All associations have to create what are called rules of eligibility for breeds. And those are voted on by members and breeders and ultimately signed off by the Minister of Agriculture in Ottawa, following certain specifications that are mostly about visual identifying features. The Canadian Kennel Club does list Border Collies as a breed on their list of purebred dogs, but they aren't the body responsible for governing what is or is not a purebred Border Collie through the rules of eligibility. Now, historically, as Christine says, they became miscellaneous under the herding group at dog shows and were given competition numbers. But since January 1st, 2023, while they have still been allowed to participate in Canadian Kennel Club shows, Border Collies are no longer classed as miscellaneous for official purposes. That is, of course, very simplified, but it gets to the question of when is a breed not a breed?
Good breeding in Border Collies is paramount. I mean, we're just so lucky to have found Paula. Because a lot of people just are breeding for appearance in Border Collies now. And wasn't there a huge argument with the Kennel Club about whether or not they wanted to have Border Collies be recognized because they weren't traditionally a working...
Border Collies are not recognized in Kennel Club.
Yeah, because
the Canadian Border Collie Association fought it tooth and nail.
Yeah, because what you're doing there is like, as far as the Kennel Club is concerned, those are very nice leather shoes.
So the Kennel Club designation would be breeding for looks,
right? And so, like, parameters, and they would like things like how thick the blaze has to be and that sort of thing. Whereas these are a functional working dog still. I know, I don't have enough arms.
But
there's a divide between Kennel Club and working club, and I mean, there's definitely within the Kennel Club, as in like dog shows and all of that. There's very strict standards for looks and structure, and there's a misconception that there's a divide between the working and the show on that. Working breeders are equally as concerned about structure and like physical structure and everything. It's whether the dog has a long coat or a short coat, or has a wide blaze, or like some of the more cosmetic parts of conformation showing. But it's definitely, like, I mean, I've been involved with Border Collies for about 20 years, and it's definitely, like, there's definitely a lot of divide on the sort of show versus working, and a lot of people assume that working don't care about looks, which is partially true, but structure is extremely important
Functionality,
in working,
that sort of thing,
because and it is also important in conformation. Like both of those look at structure. It's basically the hairdo that becomes important in, like in showing a dog with less striking markings may not do as well as we're judging them on how they can sheep around the
which
field.
is what's important.
And breeding for a structure which will allow them to do the work that they're bred to do, which is running around on ground, sometimes jumping over things, covering, like when covering large expanses of ground, like the big outruns that they do, and that, like being physically able to do all of that.
Now, for those who don't know anything about poodles, there are three different sizes of poodle, right?
Yeah, there's 3 different varieties. There's the standard, which is what you see here. They're a minimum of 15 inches. And then there's miniature poodles that are between 10 and 15 inches at the shoulder. And then there's toy poodles, which are 10 inches and under. Those are the 3 varieties. This dog has what we call a straight front. It sort of comes right out of the shoulder down, straight to the leg. So we'd like a nicer angle in the shoulder, which will give him more chest. He has a beautiful tail set that comes off of his spine at about 12:30, 1 o'clock over his back. He has a beautiful length of neck, nice top line, beautiful rear end angulation, nice feet. And as mentioned earlier, I'd really like to work on this with our boy.
So it's that angle that you need to...
And over generations, we will get that.
So this leads me to something I hadn't thought about. When people send away for the genetic testing on their dogs,
Yes.
which is like genetic testing on people, it's,
I do it for
It's fun
disease, but I don't do it for
breeds. But the
for
people
breeds.
doing it for breeds,
Right.
it's sort of a fun thing. It's not like...
Yeah, exactly.
But the reason it can come back with so many different breeds is because really all these, even if it's a purebred, it could have...
It could have a little
bit of everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So everything's a mixed breed
In the beginning.
in the beginning.
But it was bred for a purpose.
All right.
I got to drive that one home.
Okay.
It was bred for a
Got it.
purpose.
And that's what makes it
That's what makes
purebred.
it a pure. That's what makes it
It
eligible.
doesn't make it a better dog.
No,
It's just that's a...
no,
well, maybe it
exactly. It's what it was bred. It had to be bred for a purpose, and then it will be accepted for this. But it has to be a purpose that is not monetary.
There are some breeds that now I just like going through my head going like, what purpose was that one?
But if you
that's
look,
okay.
if you look at the origin of the breed and you research the origin of the breed, there is something there.
Okay.
Like some of the little toy breeds were bred to sit on people's laps to collect the bugs.
Oh, okay. So this is like some really old stuff.
Yeah, if you research it in, like the Mastiffs, like the
Yeah.
English Mastiffs, they were the guardians of the gates.
A purpose. Just so we're clear here, a purpose does not include being the lovable companion sitting next to you on the couch. Well, unless it's the 17th century and the dog is cleaning you of bugs, I suppose. Of course, being a couch potato is for many people a very important purpose for dogs, and I don't want to take away from that. But it isn't a purpose in the way Christine means. Think sled dogs and farm dogs, herding dogs. Maybe it's dogs with jobs. Now, in a world of therapy dogs and search and rescue dogs, will the purpose of a dog change? Maybe. So once it's registered,
Yes.
then what does that mean in terms of oversight, or is there any? like in terms of
Well, we have
different breeds?
the different clubs, like the national clubs, will write a breed standard.
Okay.
And they will tweak it on and off
Yeah.
and change it. And you have to be voted in also by the members to allow your breed to be accepted into the CKC.
Okay, all right. Do you know what the last breed was to be accepted? I don't. Actually,
No, but we did just bring in a whole bunch.
I didn't know the answer, so of course I went and looked it up. The newest breed admitted to the Canadian Kennel Club was on January 1st, 2023, and it's the Buer Terrier. It turns out this whole breed registration process is an ongoing one. In November of 2022, the Canadian Kennel Club held a referendum on approving breed standards or rules of eligibility for 6 breeds, including the miniature American Shepherd, Parson Russell Terrier, and the Akita. They were all voted in and now go on to the next step of being approved by Agriculture Canada before finally becoming official with the CKC. That's something I've never paid attention to at confirmation shows. Do you not see border collies at confirmation shows in Canada?
They're miscellaneous. They can be shown in miscellaneous class, so it's not recognized as its own class.
Because now that I think of it, I don't see them very often there.
Right. They can participate in all the sports, like
rally and obedience.
Rally, obedience, like CKC agility and all of that, and they do. You know, like you can register a mixed breed to do some of the sports as well. So they can definitely participate in all of that. There has not been much. The Canadian Border Collie Association has maintained the registry of border collies in Canada, and then under the legislation, there's one registry that registers a breed. They didn't want to amalgamate it with the Canadian Kennel Club, so they retain their status as a separate pedigree association.
So you've worked with a lot of different breeds,
Yes.
mostly purebreds.
Mostly.
What makes purebred?
The piece of paper.
Is a purebred, like here, I mean, so there are certain breeds I won't mention that are very controversial, right?
Sure.
I mean, there's actually lots of breeds that are very controversial, right?
Yeah.
But is there a difference in practical terms between being able to train a purebred?
I know where you're going with that. No, absolutely not. It's all the dog. It doesn't matter what the breed is. You know, some of them might have a little bit more of a proclivity to, you know, be able to sniff things out better. Beagles, and some shepherds, and things like that. Some of them have a little bit more of a proclivity bred into them over hundreds of years to go get that duck out in the water. But the ability to train a dog to do the basic behaviors that humans need a dog to do to have a pet dog, doesn't make any difference whatsoever.
So in terms of what makes a breed, that is more about the show.
Yeah, I would say that's more on the show side, and they're very protective of that. You know, the American Kennel Club, which I have most of my experience with, but the Canadian Kennel Club is going to be very much the same, the recognized breeds.
If you really want to see various purebreds, ones that come closest to the exacting standards and rules of eligibility of the Canadian Kennel Club, then a stop on the dog show circuit is in order.
It's a great opportunity to see purebred dogs at their best, because when they come to the dog show, they've been groomed very well to present them to their best potential for review by and assessment by the dog show judges.
Well, each breed has a breed standard, and the idea is when you're judging, if there's 3 dogs in the ring, you're not necessarily judging that dog against that dog against that dog. You're judging each dog against the breed standard, where it tells what they should have, whether ear placement, eye colour, body shape, coat texture, and you go through that breed standard in your head while you're judging the dog, and then at the end of the class, you do to the best of your ability to place the dogs 1, 2, 3, and that's how it is. In Europe, it's slightly different in that they give a written critique on each individual. So you don't judge as many dogs. It takes just time because you have to verbally correct every dog in the ring. So it can be very interesting. And judges' opinions obviously differ. Otherwise, there'd be nobody at the show.
My female is a titch long for me. Now, on measurement, a poodle is a square breed. If you look and put a box here, this measurement from the point of chest to the pin bone and the point of shoulder to the floor should be exactly the same for this breed.
And that's for the breed standard.
The breed standard.
I think there's a lot of people that, first of all, might be surprised that a museum of the dog exists. But what I'm wondering, what do you hope the public gets out of a place like this, a space like this?
Well, it's not only just the understanding of the breeds and how they've progressed over the years, but it's also part of the AKC is about the history and being part of that history, the part of being a responsible dog owner and breeder, really respecting the sport and the breeds.
At what period of time did we start to see interest in going from just, oh, there's dogs, to knowing, okay, these are the breeds and these are the standards?
Well, the breeding has been going on for a long time, in many cases thousands of years. It's just something people would do if you were just sort of a matter of following, what dogs make good mates with other ones, what you get out of that. It's just sort of an intrinsic and kind of inherent, but then it became more codified, and they started writing this stuff down in a very English way. They started in around 1851, they started writing down the standards, the breed standards. It should be such and such a height, it should be this color, the ear should be this way, the muzzle should be that way, and they started having clubs that would generate these conformation dictates.
And so when we think of a dog show like the Westminster Dog Show, which is obviously the famous one here in New York and internationally, that's what they're looking at now. They're judging these breeds by those standards that have been developed over the centuries.
Right, each of the American Kennel Club, each breed of 199 breeds we recognize has a parent club. And the parent club, because they have all sorts of other clubs beneath them, but the parent club for that one breed decides what the standards are. And then the judges are supposed to judge according to that standard.
So if I go to a kennel club in the UK or France or Canada or the States, are the standards similar for the breeds, or is there variation?
Generally it's similar, but you'll find some differences. Okay. But also the more European breeds, and you'll find that the AKC has over the years been adding more and more breeds as more and more litters and dogs are bred here in the United States. Then they can be recognized.
The AKC and the CKC are independent of one another.
Yes.
Just similar names.
Right.
So there are different recognized breeds. There are obviously a lot of overlap.
Right.
But there are some breeds that are recognized in one, not recognized in the other, right?
Correct.
Because they just vote in their own.
And they just haven't made their way up.
Okay. Interesting. It was the Border Collie one that set me off a couple weeks ago.
No, but that's because they want to keep the authenticity of their breed. They
so
don't
in that
want
case,
to change.
it isn't so much that it isn't a purebred dog.
No.
It's that they are so focused on having a working line breed.
A working line dog, exactly, to keep their purpose.
Okay,
that's what it is, and
they
not
don't
lose
want the
that
focus
purpose.
to be on the look of the dog,
right?
Or the.
It's still got to be a working dog, and be able to work.
So one of the things we talked about is purebreds or purpose-bred breeds. That's not what this is.
No, this is one of the few, what we call a mixed breed that we have. This is what's known as a lurcher. They're more popular in England. I'm not sure about Canada, but...
I've never heard of them, actually.
Okay. Well, a lurcher is a dog which is a cross between a greyhound and some other breed, a herding dog like a collie or an Airedale like a large terrier. But what's happened was in England, the greyhounds were reserved for the aristocracy, and the landowners, they would have them. And really, there were laws that you couldn't own one unless you were a certain station. but he was also known as a poacher's dog, because what would happen was an enterprising poacher would bring his sheepdog or his Airedale onto the landowner's property, and it'd be a female who's in season, and get some greyhound DNA along the way, and you get a dog that's a mix between those two.
Is it unusual to see a portrait like this of a mixed breed dog?
Yeah, you don't see too many of them. I think we have 2 here in the collection.
And you have a large collection.
And, yeah, we have 1,700 pieces here, and but also, yeah, it's not something that the person who would own this dog wouldn't necessarily have the wherewithal to commission a portrait.
Okay.
And the person who would commission a portrait wouldn't own this dog. So
that's really interesting. Yeah. So this was an artist capturing a piece of history, really, and why that dog was used.
Yeah, there's a fascinating artist who survived the Civil War and went all around the world, and this was painted in the north coast of France and Normandy.
So in a way, we end our journey understanding breeds only by looping back to the question, when is a breed not a breed? The Border Collie, it turns out, is a breed in Canada. It's just registered by its own association, the Border Collie Association of Canada. But in the United States, well, it falls under the American Kennel Club. How about the lurcher, proudly hanging on the walls of the Museum of the Dog in New York City, the headquarters of the American Kennel Club, yet not a purebred, though most certainly a dog with a purpose. A dog that goes back to at least 1668, created by crossing a sight hound and a working breed. It can have all manner of forms and attributes, and that variety is what ensures it cannot be considered a purebred. It's certainly a dog with a purpose. 2, in fact. Hunting, of course, but the lurcher was generally owned by commoners because the law in England until 1831 prevented anyone who was not wealthy from owning hunting dogs. A purpose. A dog that was a hunting dog and yet wasn't. Sort of like a breed that isn't a breed. So like the Belgian Malinois was bred to be a war dog.
Exactly, right.
I mean, now it has other uses,
right,
but it was,
exactly.
It was bred
That's
to use in
why
the
it was
war.
bred. Yes, exactly. And it was a mix, but it was bred for a purpose, not...
And you must have to get to a certain number of generations.
Yes, of course you do.
So that it isn't still random.
No. And you'll see some things kind of pop up kind of odd, like when you look at a dog and you go, and it's a throwback, a little bit of a throwback of a gene. And you look at them and you go.
Why do you think people care so much about dogs?
Oh, that's an easy one. It's just, who doesn't love dogs? I mean, it's one of the things when we talked to our architects when we built this, we said, you know, there are a lot of museums out there that are niche museums, you know, like stamps or trains or toy trains. But this is a niche museum for everyone, because who doesn't like dogs?
You're right.